girls, this is Miss Reese. I am a STEM educator at Idaho National Laboratory as well as a first grade teacher. And for today's STEM story read aloud, I have selected the story, If You Decide to Go to the Moon, written by Faith McCultley and illustrated by Stephen Kellogg. Now, before I start this story, do you love space? Do you like learning about the different planets? Do you like learning about rocket ships? Well, if you really enjoy learning about space and you love using your hands to build things, you may want to consider becoming a part of Idaho National Laboratory's Space Power Systems team in your future. Now, if you're a part of this team, you get to help build space batteries for things like the New Horizons space mission to Pluto and other really awesome space missions. So think about that, because maybe when you grow up you might want to be a part of that team. We're going to go ahead and get started with our story. Are you ready? Okay, let's get started. If you decide to go to the moon in your own rocket ship, read this book before you start. It will tell you how to get there and what to do after you land. The most important part tells you how to get home. Check the things you will need: spacesuit, air tanks, books, and games. Do not forget your diary and plenty of food. Peanut butter, apples, and cake will taste good in space. Water and juice are also important. To get to the moon, you will travel about 240,000 miles. A long trip, but rocket ships go fast. If you average 3,750 miles per hour, you will get there in 2.5 days. Oh my goodness, you could get to space in 2.5 days. Get aboard, close the hatch, light the burners. Okay, count down with me. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off! You shoot up into the sky. As your ship rises through the clouds, your body is pressed against the seat. At first, you feel very heavy. Do not worry, this feeling will go away. Okay, do you want to try something really fun? Okay, I'm going to count down again to blast off, but this time I want you to start down on the ground. And then when I get to blast off, I want you to shoot up in the air like a rocket ship. Are you ready? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off! Jump up off the ground! Oh, you got some air, you were so high! That was pretty fun. Okay, let's keep going. For a few seconds, you fly through a mixture of clouds and air and dust that hangs over the earth. It is not very thick, only about 15 miles. You will shoot right through it into space. Space is dark and empty. There is no air in space, no clouds, no rain, only a few specks of dust, some rocks called meteors, and some chunks of ice called comets. Both meteors and comets are pieces of stars that exploded long ago and have been flying around in space ever since. If you hit one, it would be very bad. But space is so big and you are so small that a collision is unlikely. In the blackness of space, the stars shine like a million fireflies. Have any of you ever seen a meteor shower? Okay, the next time you hear about it, you and your family might want to go outside on an evening when it's super, super dark outside and watch. They're pretty fascinating. The sun blazes with fiery light and the moon, the mysterious moon, glows like a pearl in the black, black sky. Of course, you know that the moon has no light of its own. It glows in the light of the sun. Up here in space, you may feel very alone. Don't look back at Earth. It would make you even lonelier. This is the time to play some cheerful music, eat a peanut butter sandwich, keep your eyes fixed on the shining moon, and settle down for a long ride. How many of you would like to eat a peanut butter sandwich in space? How fun would that be? Relax, take your seatbelt and take off your seatbelt and be prepared for a surprise because you are weightless in space. You'll feel amazingly light. You will float like a feather inside the cabin and bounce off the cabin walls, but you will bounce very lightly and find it a lot of fun. You can see him right there floating. I think it'd be pretty fun to float. When you are thirsty, do not try to pour orange juice into a glass. With everything weightless, it would collect into floating liquid balls and become an orange juice blob. You can drink out of a squeeze bottle instead. After supper and a squeeze of juice, it's time for bed. Tie yourself to your bunk so you won't float away and settle down for a good night's sleep. Of course, there is no night in space. You will have to pretend. Try to have sweet dreams. When you wake, you will be much closer to the moon. It will be big and round and very bright, with dark patches that look like lakes or seas. They were made billions of years ago when the moon was very hot, hot enough to melt stone. Now and then, melted stone spurted up through the crust and spread out on the surface like spilled soup. When it cooled, it hardened into stone called lava. From Earth, these smooth, dark places look like oceans. See him looking out his window there, you can see the lava. Playing cards will help to pass the time, but if you drop them, they will drift around the cabin like butterflies. Floating around to catch them feels like swimming in a dream. The first humans to go to the moon landed on the Sea of Tranquility. It is marked on your moon map and would be a good place to land. But you still have a long way to go. When you are tired, lie down, look at all the stars. On Earth, you see only the stars that are above you. Up here and there are stars in every direction. You might write in your diary, I wonder how far space goes and where it ends. So, in a little bit, I'm going to ask you to pause this video, and if you have a scrap of paper lying around, or maybe you do have a diary or a journal or a notebook, maybe a science notebook, I would love for you to write this question down that this little boy asks in his diary. And then really think about it, and you can either write what you think the answer may be or your thoughts about that question after our story, or you can go ahead and jot that down and then come back and listen to the rest. So I'm going to read the question one more time, and then I would love for you to pause this, go find that piece of paper or science notebook, and write this question down. He asks, I wonder how far space goes and where it ends. How far do you think space really goes, and where do you think it ends? I would love to hear all of your different answers or thoughts about this. So go ahead and pause this video and come back when you're ready. All right, welcome back, boys and girls. I hope you had a fun time thinking about that question. We're gonna go ahead and continue on with our story. At last, when you have read all your books and played all your games, you wake from a nap and see the moon right there below you. You look down on the endless desert. Everything is all one color, a silvery gray. The ground is covered with rocks and rock craters. Craters are holes made by meteors and have rained down on the moon through the ages. Some are huge and made deep holes hundreds of miles across. Of course, you steer clear of the rocky places. See the spaceship? At last, you see a lava lake below, the Sea of Tranquility. Get ready to land. As you descend, your craft shivers and shakes. It settles softly and you feel a bump. You are on the moon. Your first look will be disappointing. All you see through your porthole is a cloud of dust stirred up by your landing. Put on your spacesuit and air tank while you wait for it to settle. Then open the hatch and jump out. You will land lightly. The moon is smaller than Earth and has less gravity to pull you down. If you weigh 60 pounds on Earth, you will weigh only 10 on the moon. Your first step will be difficult. You will rise in the air and leap forward like a kangaroo, but once you learn how, walking will be fun. Each step takes you 5 times as far as a step on Earth. Leaping over boulders and craters, you cover the ground with magical swiftness. The moonscape is strange, but it does not look dangerous. The dust reminds you of cake flour. You wish you could take off your suit and play in it. Now your STEM challenge after this is going to be a space experiment with cake flour, just how the little boy is describing the moon. So after this story, I think you're really gonna like that experiment. But don't do it. The heat of the sun will burn you up because there is no air or water on the moon. There are no clouds to shield it from the heat of the sun or the cold of space. Anything touched by the sun is blistering hot. Anything in shadow is instantly cold. Without a spacesuit, you would sizzle or freeze. So that's a very important essential item for space travel, your spacesuit. As you walk, you will notice that your boots do not crunch on the pebbles. If you take a hammer and hit a rock, there is no bang. It is impossible to make a noise on the moon. Without air to carry sound waves, you cannot hear a bell ring. You cannot hear a horn blow. You cannot hear a whistle or a song on the moon. If you kick a pebble, it will bounce without a sound. How strange is that? There are no sound waves to carry the sound. It's very quiet. As you keep walking, the silence and stillness are eerie. Nothing moves. The boulders and hills have strange shapes. Some hills look like dinosaurs. Some boulders look like giant turtles, or weird birds, or a herd of cows. A heap of jagged rocks looks like a ruined castle. You feel as if you might be in a fairy tale, or is it a dream? Your map tells you that the astronaut camp is just over the next hill. As you climb, you wonder, if things will look different on the other side. Will you find something green? Something alive? A meadow of moon grass? A herd of moon cows? What do you think? Are there going to be a herd of moon cows on the other side? Let's find out. The answer is no. The hills stretch on and on to the horizon where the rim of the moon meets the blackness of space. Everything on the moon is lifeless and still. Think of how black and dark and quiet it would be. To find the astronaut camp, climb to the top of the boulder and use your binoculars to scan the distance. Look for a patch of color, the red, white, and blue of the flag that astronauts left behind. It will stand out against the gray dust. As you get close to the camp, you will see everything the astronauts left behind. Strewn amidst the lunar dust, tools and equipment are scattered about. Their boot prints look fresh, as though they were made a moment ago. There is no wind or rain to wear them away. The astronauts left a message for anyone who visits the moon. You find it written on a plaque. Here, men from the planet Earth first set foot on the moon, July 1969. But the flag they planted is not flying. The flagpole was blown over from the blast when the astronauts took off, and the flag is lying in the dust. You pick it up and you push it deep into the sand. The flag is stiffened with wires so that it looks as though it is flying even though there is no wind. It is a brave and wonderful sight and reminds you of the courage of the astronauts who brought it here. If astronauts ever return, they will find the flag flying once again and your footprints in the dust. So that's a really interesting fact. The flag that was placed on the moon actually is not blowing in the wind because there is no wind on the moon. So they stiffened it with wire to make it look like it was and is flying. But now your tank of air must be half empty. It's time to return to your ship. Your trail of footprints will lead you back. You retrace your steps in leaps and bounds. When you see your spaceship waiting, you are suddenly and terribly homesick. You cannot wait to get back to Earth. Take a last look at the moonscape, get aboard, close the hatch, and pray that the computers will start. You push buttons, lights flicker, machinery whirls, rockets fire, your ship lifts off, your heart lifts too. But you have thousands of miles to travel. You'll just have to be patient. Do you think you would get homesick? Do you think you'd want to go back to Earth, or do you think you'd want to live on the moon? That's another really fun question you could put in your science notebook. Whenever you feel discouraged, look through your porthole. You will see a beautiful sight. Earth, surrounded by stars shining like blue and white, like a blue and white ball on a Christmas tree. The nearer you get to Earth, the more wonderful Earth will seem. Finally, you are close enough to see the continents and the oceans. You can see the clouds and rain and wind moving across them, connecting everything on Earth. You ready for something really cool? We have a pop-up page. As you look down at the oceans, you think of all the animals that live there. Fish and whales and seals, turtles, dolphins, soaring seabirds, and countless more. You can see the snow cap at the North Pole and imagine great white bears wandering over the ice floes. Look how beautiful. But wait, there's more. Let's try to see if I can fit it in the screen here. Oh. You can see Earth's marvelous variety, green forests and grassy plains, mountains, lakes, and deserts that are home to animals, plants, and people too. Why is Earth so different from the moon? Earth has air and water on which all life depends. Without them, Earth would be lifeless as the moon. Air and water are Earth's special blessings. We must guard them well. Hopefully this fits, but you can see how cool the illustrator made this large picture. Everything that we are lucky, so lucky to have on our planet. If you have this book or check it out at the library, I bet you love this page or would love to open this page up. Your trip is almost over. Your ship has reached the atmosphere. You drop down through the clouds and land on green grass. I spy a rocket ship in this picture. Can you find it? Do you see it? It is right there. You jump out, thankful for a miraculous journey and a safe return. Oh, look, his little kitties and his dog are running to him. As you bend down to kiss the ground, you promise you will always do your best to protect all life on our beautiful Earth. And that is the end of our story. I hope you enjoyed this. This is a really great space read, and you can probably find this at your local library, and perhaps some of you have this at home or have heard it at school, but I hope you enjoyed this. So after this story read aloud, I do have a STEM experiment for you. We are going to make moon craters. It's a really simple and easy STEM challenge that you can do it at home in the safety of your home. So thank you for reading this with me, and I will see you in a little bit. Hello boys and girls, it's Miss Reese again, and thank you for listening to our story read aloud called If You Decide to Go to the Moon. And I had mentioned to you that after our story read aloud that we would have a STEM experiment for you to do at home. Now this STEM experiment is not only really fun, but it's super easy to do, and I think that you and your family are going to have a lot of fun with it. So the materials that you will need a pie pan or just some type of a round flat bowl. It doesn't have to be glass, it could be a pie pan or a glass one, either way. And then you will need some flour. So just As mentioned in the story, the little boy in the story mentioned that the moon dust reminded him of cake flour, and you will be using flour for our little experiment today. You will then need to go to your local park, or maybe you like to go camping or your backyard, wherever you can. Collect a bunch of pebbles or rocks. Maybe you even have a rock collection already at home. You can bring those rocks out. And then this is optional if you have some space toys or find some that you would like to use for this space activity. I have some little spaceships, a little Land Rover here. I have a little American flag. I have some little astronauts. So I'm going to use those for our little experiment. So for our experiment today, you are going to be making moon craters. So we're going to pretend like this pie pan is going to be our moon. We're going to take our flour. We're going to dump some in here. Yes, you get to touch this with your hands. I know you're probably super excited about that. I'm just gonna dump a little. I'm gonna spread it around with my hands. Now, you can use a spatula for this, but I think it's really fun to use your hands. I think it's really fun for kids. We're just gonna level it out a little bit. Okay, and I'm gonna add just a little bit more. Really glad I have a tablecloth because I'm getting this table super messy. So maybe something to consider at home when you're doing this. All right, so once I have my flour leveled, don't know if you can see it there. Okay, so it's nice and leveled. I'm going to take my pebbles. Now you can stand on a stool with adult supervision, or maybe on a chair, something that makes you kind of stand up a little taller. But you're then going to take your rocks or your pebbles and you're going to drop them into your cake flour. So you can drop as many as you want. I'm gonna keep doing this. You can count with me. 3, woo! 4, my flour is splattering all over the place. 5, I don't know if you can see it. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, we'll do 12. 12. Okay, so now it looks really messy. You can see my rocks are in there. But now you're gonna take your rocks out. And I want you to see, when you do that, you're going to observe your flour. And it's probably really hard to see from the camera, but that's okay because you're gonna be doing this at home. But you can probably notice that there are some holes, some very large, deep, big holes in my cake flour, just like we had talked about in our story, that the craters in the moon happened from meteors crashing into the moon a long, long time ago. Now, you can keep throwing rocks into this and you can count your craters. But to make it even more fun, if you do have your space toys, you can feel free to place your little space toys in here. Look how cute and fun. And you and your siblings, or you and a family member, or just you by yourself, can play in the cake flour and pretend that this is your little moon. You can even add a little rover there, put your little astronaut on the Land Rover, and just make it a really fun stay-at-home STEM activity. So I hope you enjoyed this. It's super easy and fun. It only takes rocks, some flour, and a pie pan. I don't know if you can see Oscar here. He's with me today, and he also really enjoyed this. So if you have a pet at home, you can have them tag along with you with this little STEM experiment. Thank you so much for joining me.